The term bucket list was never used before the 2007 movie. That sounds made up, but the internet says it's true. Welcome to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds made up, but is really true. Part of the WCBE podcast experience and available on all podcast platforms, as well as the NPR app and website. My name is Allison Kent, and this is episode 231. Thank you for tuning in. Hey guys, as you can tell, I'm not my husband. Michael spent the week performing on the college party cruise, and now he's got the cruise crud, so he's exhausted and feeling under the weather. But this coming weekend, you can catch him performing at Keller's Magic and Comedy Club on Friday and Saturday, and at the Wright Evans Seneca Theater in Salamanca, New York for a matinee on Sunday to raise money for the Empire Animal Rescue. So this week is another Rewind episode while he recharges and tries to rest up and feel better. Don't forget to sign up on Patreon. It's the best way to give back to this project. If you've enjoyed the hundreds of hours of entertainment and education we've provided, consider becoming a Tizitor on Patreon. That's at patreon.com/Michael Kent. There is a link in the show notes to join. It's very easy, and there's even a free trial to check out. Once again, that's patreon.com/Michael Kent. So let's get into this week's Rewind episode. This was originally released February of 2022, and it's about a strange Mandela Effect.
Hey Michael, this is Owen Cooper. I was just wondering if you've been following the controversy about the origin of the phrase bucket list. I think that'd be a great episode. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks.
Thanks, Owen. I got this message late at night, and I proceeded to stay up way too long reading the Reddit thread about it. This blew me away.
My freshman philosophy professor assigned this exercise in forward thinking. He called it a bucket list. We were supposed to make a list of all the things we wanted to do in our lives before we kicked the bucket. Cutesy.
When Nelson Mandela died in 2013, thousands of people were confused. Something in their brain, some false memory, told them that Nelson Mandela had died in prison in the 1980s. This was despite the fact that he had gone on to be freed and to serve as president of South Africa for 5 years in the 90s. An American writer and so-called paranormal consultant, Fiona Broome, called the false memory, quote, the Mandela Effect. And since then, popular culture is quick to point out similar false memories that happen on a large scale. Here are some of the most popular examples. You may have heard of some of these. Rich Uncle Pennybags in Monopoly never wore a monocle. Sinbad never made a genie movie in the 1990s. In Star Wars, Darth Vader never said the phrase, "Luke, I am your father." That one, he said, "No, I am your father," and he was saying it to Luke, but people misremember it. There are more subtle examples like that, like people misremembering the color chartreuse as a pinkish magenta when it's really a green color. They misremember a hyphen in the name of the Kit Kat candy bar. They mistakenly think that Smokey the Bear was known as Smokey the... I said Smokey the Bear. It's actually Smokey Bear. Here's one that really got me. The movie Risky Business. There's this famous scene. Tom Cruise slides into the shot, and he's wearing just underwear and a button-down shirt, and he's lip-syncing to old-time rock and roll. He's not wearing sunglasses in the movie, but you would probably swear that he was. Go back. Watch it. There are no sunglasses. There are dozens of these. I could just sit and talk about examples of the Mandela Effect all day, and a lot of these start to get weak, like how people point out Forrest Gump never said life is like a box of chocolates. Okay, no, he didn't. But he said, Mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. So I don't see that as much as a Mandela Effect, because it's clear that as people quoted the movie and they didn't add the Mama said part, it adapted to make more sense when people used the phrase. But some of these are more bold false memories, like all of the people who swear the Fruit of the Loom underwear logo had a cornucopia as part of the design. It never did, never has. Or how Ed McMahon used to deliver giant checks to people as part of the Publishers Clearinghouse. He never did that. He did briefly work for one of their competitors, but he never appeared on camera as part of that promotion. Well, the internet is going crazy right now with a new one, and it's about the phrase bucket list, as in, here's a list of things I want to do before I die. The claim is that this phrase never appeared before the Rob Reiner Buddy movie in 2007. And when you hear that, if you're like me, you're like, that's absolute BS, because I've used that phrase my whole life since I was a kid, and I've always known about bucket lists. The film is about these two men played by Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman who are terminally ill. One's a millionaire and the other's a mechanic. They become friends in the hospital room that they share, and they decide to write a list of things they want to do before they kick the bucket. And that's why it's called a, quote, bucket list. So the claim is that the writer of this film, who was Justin Zackham, coined the phrase when he wrote the script in 2006. It first appears 30 pages into the script when we see a list with the title, and the character explains that I was trying to be funny, I guess. It's a list of things to do before I kick the bucket. That's the original script. So this is Morgan Freeman's character, and Jack Nicholson's character discovers this list, and here's how that actually played out in the movie. I played it at the very top of this episode, but let's listen again.
My freshman philosophy professor assigned this exercise in forward thinking. He called it a bucket list. We were supposed to make a list of all the things we wanted to do in our lives before we kicked the bucket. Cutesy.
So that was 2007. Think about how old you were in 2007, and think about not knowing or not having used the phrase before then. Does that seem impossible to you? I know it does to me. Well, when we come back from a quick break, we'll try to find out the truth.
Hey, I'm Cliff Baumgardner.
And I'm Harrison Stewart.
If you're like us, you probably grew up watching the Discovery Channel classic, Mythbusters.
From rocket cars to chicken cannons, Mythbusters proved there's no question too big, too small, or too ridiculous to put to the test.
Now we're going back to rewatch the show from episode 1, and we want you to follow along. Join us as we revisit every single myth, moment, experiment, and explosion from throughout the show's legendary 14 seasons. Subscribe now so you don't miss one.
There was a time that humans used 100% organic products as healing balms and moisturizers for their skin. Well, I've partnered with an awesome company that wants to get back to those times. Fatco sells organic and responsibly made tallow-based skincare products. For centuries, humans used tallow in skin moisturizers and healing balms, but unfortunately, the topical application of these fats seemed to stop around the same time that animal fats stopped being considered part of a healthy diet. A lot of modern skincare products do more harm than good by stripping your skin of its natural oils. Let's change that. You can try them out now at fatco.com and get 15% off your order by using my promo code INTERNET. Go to theinternetsaysitstrue.com/deals for the link.
We're living through the most dynamic time in human history, and what we do as leaders matter. We are the ones that create the leverage to shift directions of our companies, our nonprofits, and our communities. As a leader or an emerging leader, please join me for a dynamic conversation with top thought leaders, academics, and executives to learn more about how to elevate your leadership. I'm Maureen Metcalf. Join us at the WCBE podcast experience at wcbe.org.
I'm John DeSando, host of Back Talk. This podcast is an extension of the long-running, award-winning movie review show, It's Movie Time. Back Talk features additional content and banter with guests about new movies. If you want more insight and information about what's playing now in theaters and online, find Back Talk at the WCBE podcast experience on wcbe.org. You'll be happy you did.
If you love listening to this podcast every week and you want to show your support, that would mean a great deal to me. You can do that by becoming a Patreon member. We've got members at all levels, whether you want to pledge $1 a month or $10 a month. Just think about the value that you receive from this show. And if you like the histories and the stories that you learn about or the jokes that you hear, and if you think that they're worth it, consider signing up. For that, you get every episode ad-free and a week early, access to bonuses like the unedited videos of the guest appearances, and 20% off all merchandise. You can sign up today at patreon.com/Michael Kent. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent. Okay, let's get back to the internet. I did a lot of research on the internet looking into this week. It kept me up way too late when I first read about it, because everything in me says this phrase existed my whole life. It stems from the phrase kick the bucket to mean death. Now, that phrase is old. It goes back to at least 1785. The origin has something to do with either the French word bucket, like B-U-C-Q-U-E-T, meaning a balance, or the literal action of a person being hanged and standing on a bucket before doing so, kicking away the bucket. So was the 2007 movie, which was written in 2006, the first instance of the phrase bucket list? Well, internet sleuths have searched newspaper databases, old archived websites, and Google book databases, and it seems like this phrase wasn't widely used anywhere before this film. I'm blown away by this. Now, with that said, it may be that Justin Zackham wasn't the first to actually use the phrase. A book called Unfair and Unbalanced, The Lunatic Magniloquence of Henry E. Pankey by Patrick M. Carlisle contains this sentence, quote, "So anyway, a great man in his querulous twilight years who doesn't want to go gently into that blacky black night. He wants to cut loose, dance on the razor's edge, pry the lid off his bucket list." End quote. So it's older. That book is from, it's from 2004. Not many people have heard of this book, so even if he coined the phrase, no one used it, and no one heard of it from this book. There's also a blog post from someone named Kendra Puckett in 2006 called 1,000 Words that references the phrase, and it's being used in the same context here, almost the same sentence as the film. And another reference from a blog called, quote, Fong Songs, where someone used the phrase, all with dashes, quote, "must see before I kick the proverbial bucket list." That's from 2006, July of 2006. And as we've stated, that same year, a screenplay was written by Justin Zackham. The idea came to him when he had written his own list. He called it, quote, "list of things to do before I kick the bucket," end quote, and later shortened it to Justin's Bucket List. The first item on his list was to get a film made at a major studio. The 2007 Rob Reiner film became Zackham's first studio film. Oh my gosh, the internet says this is true. This is a Mandela Effect. Human memory is not good. I can't believe it. I absolutely cannot believe this one. I would have sworn I used that phrase growing up, but it just can't be true. The phrase bucket list never existed in any sort of popular, widespread way until a Rob Reiner film used it as its title in 2007. Wow. Now it's time for the part of the podcast where I call a friend, and today I'm calling comedian Lisa Berry. Lisa is a comedian, performer, and sketch writer whose sketches have appeared on BuzzFeed, Hoo Ha Ha, and Funny or Die. She's also one of the founding producers of C-Bus Comedy, who produces comedy shows around Columbus, Ohio. Lisa Berry, it is so good to have you on the podcast. I'm excited. I love supporting Columbus comedians and having them on the show. I'm not really in the Columbus comedy crowd being a magician, but I'm in just enough that I have a ton of comedian friends, and you're always working. You're in the mix. When did you get involved with Columbus comedy?
Yeah, so I started about 10 years ago was when I did my first open mic. I am somebody that I've sometimes sporadically done it, especially I have a son now. So I've definitely taken some time off at different points in time. But yeah, I started about 10 years ago when I had my first open mic. And actually at that time, another Columbus comic, Tom Plute, that was his first open mic. Our first open mic was the same night. Awesome. And we became pretty good friends. And as I think you know, we went on to help another third Columbus comic, Dustin Meadows, produce a festival for a number of years called the Whiskey Bear Comedy Festival. Mm-hmm. Dustin, for various reasons that kind of ended. Dustin moved out to LA, and the Whiskey Bear Comedy Festival folded, but Tom and I wanted to continue working together. So now 10 years later, we are producers of C-Bus Comedy, where we produce and we perform at shows all over the city, and it's pretty fun. But that's how I got started in it. I did the open mics, and then I started getting book shows. For a while, I was doing a lot of sketch comedy. So that was a big part of what I did. But the main sketch show that I was a part of stopped during, when everything kind of shut down, as we all know. That stopped, and it hasn't really started back up. But
do you do improv as well?
No, I don't do improv. I've been guests on improv shows. Like Hashtag Comedy is a big improv group here in Columbus. I've done a couple of their shows, but it's more like I am a guest. I am not part of that world. Generally. To me, that is the most terrifying form of comedy.
It is. Yeah, that's my relationship with improv as well. I took some classes at the Second City, like improv and comedy writing and stuff, and I'm really bad at it because if you're used to doing a one-person show, when you join a troupe of improv actors, you are trying to make sure it's funny. And you're like, you're thinking in your head, like, I need to guarantee that this is going to be funny because I'm the guest. And by the time you're figuring out what's going to make it funny, they're talking about something else and you weren't listening. It's like it's a really good exercise in being present and just and going humble. With it and humble. It is humbling to do improv. But I always say, I think I've probably said it on other podcasts, like, I think improv is good for every profession, like sales and everything.
Yeah, I agree. And I have some friends that's what they do is they go to businesses and they use improv to help them improve things in business. And I agree. I think it's such a good skill to have. But yeah, especially when you're performing with people that have performed together typically, and they're so good at it. I feel like it's so intimidating. And, I think with stand-up, you're always the one that needs to get the laugh. And then I think with improv, sometimes you have to, be the assist. And I think that can sometimes be hard when you're used to doing stand-up comedy.
I had an improv teacher tell me once that I was not good at choosing weak characters. And then I needed to practice choosing weaker characters because I would come into a scene and always be like some sort of dominant character, like I'm the mayor or I'm your boss, or you know what I mean? And they said, try choosing a character that's maybe downtrodden or maybe, isn't the focal point of the scene. And I'm like, but why would I do that? They won't be watching me if I do that. So anyway, let's get into the quiz, Lisa. I'm excited to have you here. You don't know what the topic is. And for this first question, we're playing for a joke. So if you get it right, I have to tell you a joke. And if you get it wrong, you'll tell me one. And it can be a popsicle stick kids joke, a joke book joke, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Here's the question. The internet has been buzzing about the fact that which one of these phrases isn't as old as people collectively thought?
Okay.
A, cold shoulder, B, drawing board, or C, bucket list?
I think it feels like it could be any of them.
One of these in particular there have been Reddit threads about it. There have been like BuzzFeed articles and all kinds of stuff that, oh my gosh, we thought that this was an old phrase and it's not.
Oh, this is making me embarrassed because I actually am on Reddit and BuzzFeed all the time and I have no idea what this is.
I didn't either. And someone sent it to me this week and it blew me away.
So cold shoulder. I don't know. I mean, that could be newer than people think, right? Because I don't know, clothing used to cover your shoulders a lot. So maybe.
I'm going to give you a hint.
Okay.
This may give it away, but I'm going to give you a hint. This phrase originated in 2007.
One of these originated in 2007?
That's what I said. Yes, that's when I heard this, I was like, what?
Okay, so I'm trying to think of what I would have heard. I feel like I heard drawing board when I was a kid. So I feel like it's not. I swear I heard drawing board when I was younger. I feel like it's not drawing board. I feel like I heard cold shoulder when I was younger. And maybe bucket list because that one's tough because I don't know that I would have thought about a bucket list when I was a kid. So like that also might have just been like, it wasn't a part of my,
right.
But I think I am going to go with bucket list.
You are correct. The answer is bucket list. Nobody said bucket list until there was a movie. Rob Reiner made a movie called The Bucket List in 2007.
But where did he get the phrase?
So the writer...
Or do I need to listen to the podcast?
Yeah. I mean, if you go back and you listen to the podcast, it'll explain it. But we won't go over all of it for our listeners. But it was, the year prior, the writer, Justin Zackham, he had written a list of things to do before he kicked the bucket. And he shortened it to Justin's Bucket List. And that's how he sort of presented it in the movie as well. With the movie was Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, I kind of remember that movie. Okay.
Yeah, but no one said that. And everyone's like, well, bucket list has been around forever. But no one really said it until that movie. Now, there were a couple very obscure references to bucket list prior to that movie, but only by a few years. So
Right.
it was
Okay.
I think
That's so crazy.
Reddit was able
I
to
do
find.
remember the
Oh, sorry.
movie, but I felt, I definitely thought the movie came because the phrase was so used. Because now it's like I have a list on our refrigerator of like our summer bucket list for things we want to do this summer. I feel like, yeah, it's everywhere.
I do. I have a sightseeing bucket list that I use in my act when I'm doing close-up magic and someone chooses a location from my sightseeing bucket list. And I don't ever have to explain what that means to anyone.
Right. Yeah.
And which is funny because if you ask those people, they probably haven't seen that movie, The Bucket List, like, but they know what bucket list is because it became a colloquialism. I owe you a joke, Lisa.
Okay.
Why do ants never get sick?
Why do ants never get sick?
It's because they have antibodies.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. How old is your kid?
He's 3 and he's on a kick right now where he tells a joke every night. So I might have to work this into the,
you go.
To the
that one is for your son. All right. Question 2. For this question, we're playing for an admission of guilt. In this case, it's going to be a guilty pleasure movie or TV show. So if you get it wrong, you've got to tell me a movie or TV show you're not proud of loving. If you get it right, I'll tell you one of mine.
Okay.
Bucket list comes from the phrase kicking the bucket. Which one of these phrases is another euphemism for dying? A, to pop one's clogs. B, to kiss the king. Or C, to shine the train.
Okay, well, I've never heard of any of those. Can I hear them one more time?
Sure.
To pop the clog?
To pop one's clogs, as in he popped his clogs. Or B is to kiss the king, as in he kissed the king. Or C, to shine the train.
Okay, so, I mean, kiss the king sounds very plausible. Shine the train, like, like the tunnel. You're leaving Earth through a tunnel. That could make sense. Pop the clogs. I don't know. Is that like a clogged sink or like clogs that you dance with? Pop the clogs.
I guess, I don't know. I guess it would be that you dance with.
Pop the clogs. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. If it's clogs that you dance with, I feel like maybe it's like, like you're hanging up your clogs one last time. So I'm going to go pop the clogs.
Well, your reasoning was incorrect, but your answer is correct. You win that one. To pop one's clogs was a popular phrase in Britain in the 19th century. It refers to pawning someone's clothes after they die. So British slang for pawning was to pop, like I'm going to, pop this watch and get some money for it. So they would say to pop one's clogs. And apparently that was a thing, someone dies, you pawn their clothes.
I guess I didn't know clogs were that ubiquitous.
That's the one thing I didn't see was a link between clogs and clothes. I don't know what. Yeah, I didn't think clogs were anything outside of maybe like Dutch. You don't hear about that.
I thought maybe it was like, The Last Dance and now we're hanging up their clogs.
Yeah, who knows? But you got that one right. You're 2 for 2 and I owe you a guilty pleasure admission. So for me, it's every time I was thinking about this the other day, every time it comes on TV, I will stop and watch The Cosby Show and feel guilty about it. So usually when you talk about like guilty pleasure, it's kind of like, oh, this is a horrible movie, but I watch it anyway because I have a nostalgic tie to it or something. Mm-hmm. But The Cosby Show, for obvious reasons, I'm not even sure should be on TV anymore. I mean, this is a guy who drugged and raped women for most of his adult life, allegedly. And, a couple of them we know for sure he was convicted on. But I will still watch it because I just think it was good television. Like it was interesting, entertaining. There is nostalgia to it, but the writing, the comedy, it was all solid. And I think a lot of it stands up. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's similar, right? So I think sometimes it's harder with a TV show, but that's super common with music. So where people will continue to listen to music even when the artist has been proven beyond any reasonable doubt to be a horrible person. So I don't know, it feels different with TV, but I guess it's not. Yeah.
I mean, if you're Kid Rock, you make more money once you prove that you're a horrible person. Chris Brown's probably not doing as well as he was 15, 20 years ago in terms of radio plays, but he's still on all the time. People always still listen to Chris Rock.
Yeah,
or to Chris. Did I say Chris Rock?
Doing Chris Brown.
Did I say Chris,
Yeah,
Chris Brown?
Chris Brown, yeah.
I combined Kid Rock and Chris Brown
Yeah.
into an entirely new person who is
I
already a
think
person.
Chris Rock, as far as I know, is fine.
I've
right?
never heard any bad things about Chris Rock,
Right.
so I think we're okay there. Yeah, so it's one of those things, like I do feel guilty for it, but for different reasons than I feel guilty for. Like, one of my favorite movies is a movie called Time Bandits, and my brother and I often argue about this movie. It's a Terry Gilliam movie. Terry Gilliam was the artist for Monty Python, but he made, I don't know, I think he made a couple movies, and this was one where it's little people that travel through time. It's got a young Sean Connery in it, not as the main character, but just as a random king. And I think he plays King Agamemnon or something like that. And the plot of the movie is weird and twisted and not 100% sensical. And so, but I love it because of nostalgia. So that's like a real guilty pleasure movie for nostalgia. But The Cosby Show is just because, like, I would not say on stage in front of an audience, I love it. I wouldn't make my Facebook profile picture like Bill Cosby. You know what I mean?
No, you'll just say it on this nationally broadcast podcast.
But with explanation, right? Like, I have the ability here to spend 3 minutes talking about the context of why I feel guilty for doing that, and that I am aware of who he is. Whereas, okay, let's move on.
Just a basic,
Question 3. For this question, we're playing for a coveted "The Internet Says It's True" sticker. So, being that you do live in Columbus, you might actually get one of these if you get it right. Usually when people get this question right, they win the sticker. I never mail them. So, in this episode, we've talked about various examples of the Mandela Effect, which is how people describe this sort of bucket list fake memory, you know. Here is a Mandela Effect that we haven't touched in this episode. Which one of these is the correct product name? So one of these three is an actual product name. A, Stouffer's Stovetop Stuffing. B, Kraft Stovetop Stuffing. Or C, Velveeta Stovetop Stuffing.
So Stouffer Stovetop Stuffing, Kraft Stovetop Stuffing, Velveeta Stovetop Stuffing.
You got it right.
I feel like the right one is Stouffer's, which makes me think that that's the Mandela Effect one. So it's probably not Stouffer Stovetop Stuffing. So I'm trying to think. I mean, I feel like Stouffer's is right, but I don't know if I'm wrong. So I'm just gonna say Stouffer's Stovetop Stuffing.
You are experiencing the Mandela Effect along with everyone else. Everyone thinks it was Stovetop Stuffing by Stouffer's. It was, in fact, Kraft Stovetop Stuffing, and always has been, with the Kraft logo and everything. But I was born in 1979. I grew up in the 80s, and I swear I could almost sing the Stouffer's Stovetop Stuffing commercial, but it doesn't exist. It does not. You can scour YouTube for that 1980s commercial. Doesn't exist. Never happened. And it's always been Kraft. So I don't know why that's one of those things, like, sometimes you can figure out why the Mandela Effect occurs. Yeah. But this is one where no one has any idea. Do you have any favorite examples of Mandela effects?
Yeah, the Shazam movie.
The Shazam that doesn't exist. This is the famous one where everyone thinks that for some reason Sinbad was in a genie movie.
And I remember this too.
I do too. I remember that's one that works on me. And I said this to some people this weekend. We were at some friend's house out in Indiana, and they're like, no, it was Shaq. It was Shaquille O'Neal, and it was called Kazam. And there is a Shaq, but I don't get Shaquille O'Neal and Sinbad confused. That's not something people do. Everyone thinks it was Sinbad.
Right. Because, like, I saw Kazam, and Shaq is very talented at many things, but acting is not one of them. I remember one with Sinbad.
Now, there have been a multitude of Sinbad movies not starring Sinbad. Just with the name Sinbad, the legendary Sinbad. Yeah. And that, 1992 there was one, 2003 there was one, in the 70s there was a Sinbad movie, but not about a genie and not with Sinbad in them. So crazy. Yeah, that's one of those that absolutely works on me. There's another one that I mentioned in this podcast that I think is really interesting. The movie Risky Business with Tom Cruise. Okay. He's dancing in the famous scene to Old Time Rock and Roll, slides in on his sock feet, wearing underwear and a button-down shirt. he is not wearing sunglasses.
Really?
He is not. And everyone remembers that. And I think part of that is because over the years, people wore sunglasses as part of a Halloween costume to be the risky business guy. I don't know why. Now, our friend in Indiana, we were talking about this, obviously, and he said, well, the cover of the movie, Tom Cruise is wearing sunglasses.
Right? He has like sunglasses kind of like...
they're down on his nose. Yeah. So maybe there was a conglomeration of images there or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
That's fascinating.
You're due for 3, and you'll have to be on the show again to get a sticker. So question 4, and for this question, we're playing for a funny or embarrassing story from the stage. Something that's happened in your career doing comedy that is either funny or embarrassing. In the film The Bucket List, Edward Cole, played by Jack Nicholson's most notable line is this line. 3 things to remember when you get older. Never pass up a bathroom, never waste a hard-on, and what third thing? Is it A, never rewear socks, B, never drink alone, or C, never trust a fart?
I've never seen the movie. So like I remember the movie coming out, but I've never seen it. So I have no idea.
And I went back and checked, and I don't think this line is in the trailer. So I'm not sure, at least not in the original trailer. So I'm not sure anyone would know this unless you had seen the movie. So this one's just going to be a guess.
This is a total guess. I have no idea.
It was never rewear socks, never drink alone, or never trust a fart.
So here's it's a total guess. But I'm going to guess that maybe this took place in a scene where Jack Nicholson is asking somebody else to drink with him. And so he's saying, here's 3 things I've learned, yada, 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 and never drink alone, and like gives the drink to somebody. That's going to be my guess. So I'm going to say never drink alone.
3 things to remember when you get older. Never pass up a bathroom, never waste a hard-on, and never trust a fart.
I'll keep that in mind as I approach decrepitude.
That was a fantastic rationalization to get you to the wrong answer. The answer is never trust a fart. So there you go. Do you have a funny or embarrassing story from the stage, something that's happened over the years?
Oh, gosh, I have to think, because I'm sure I do, but I think I've probably blocked them out.
Yes.
Okay, so I once, and this isn't going to be that embarrassing, but it made me feel real dumb. So there was somebody that I had worked with a little bit who, like, you know, on my sketch show, we used to have local people come on sometimes and be part of the sketch show. And so there was somebody that did that who owned a local tattoo parlor and sometimes would have concerts at his tattoo parlor. And so, and I don't know, that's not like exactly my scene, but I was like, all right, I'll go. So I went to one and I was waiting for the concert to start, and I was like leaning against a wall. And then the owner came over to me. And since like we kind of knew each other, I like started talking to him a little bit. And then he like, and I know most people aren't going to see it, so I'm just going to describe what I'm doing, but he like went in with like his arms kind of like, you know, like curved and like moving his body towards me. And I thought he was going in for a hug. So I hugged him. And then he was like, he got real awkward. And he was like, oh no, you're leaning against the light switch and I have to turn the light off so the band could start playing.
Oh no, that's awesome.
And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Is this someone that you encounter in your daily life these days? Or is this someone you don't ever have to see again?
It was, yeah. Well, yeah, I never saw him again.
That's good.
I was like, all right, and I'm out. I'm never coming back.
I know where you're talking about because part of the Whiskey Bear Festival was there, and perhaps the most fun show of that festival, one of the most fun shows, was the Power Hour. And you would just have, I mean, it was like 60 comedians. Each one goes up and does 1 minute, one after another. And it was so great. It was so much fun to see if people decided, some people decided to do material. Other people just did random stuff. Who was it? Someone did the You Can't Handle the Truth scene, and they just read it as quickly as possible and did the whole scene in 1 minute. Sometimes they were just one-off joke. It was so much fun. I agree. That was so much fun because it was really cool to see what people did with that 1 minute. And because some people, especially like I don't think there's anything in my show I can do in 1 minute that actually is entertaining on its own merit. So I think I just decided to do something different. And another really fun show from Whiskey Bear Comedy Festival was Dustin Meadows' Hot Dog Show, which the premise of that show, maybe you can explain the premise better than I can.
So I've done that show several times.
Oh my gosh, I take my hat off to you for that.
So the premise of his hot dog show was that every comedian would be given kind of like a tell, or they would have some rule that they weren't supposed to violate, but they weren't aware of what it was. So like you would be asked to leave the room. Dustin would tell the entire audience what your thing was. So for example, the very first time I did the show, my thing was elaborate hand gestures. But I didn't know. So I had to leave the room, and I came back in and I would tell a joke. And anytime I would do an elaborate hand gesture, he would play a bullhorn noise, and you have to eat a hot dog. And then the rule is you don't have to eat the hot dog right away, but you have to finish all of your hot dogs before you leave the stage. So all of these comedians would start kind of piling on stage, and then they would start like interacting with the other comedians. And it was just such a fun show. I will say that was the show where I learned I do elaborate hand gestures, because I did not know before.
Well, and that's what made the show so good, is that Dustin would sort of study the comedians that were going to be on the show to find out if they had a tick or a tell or something that they did quite often in their set. And so there is an opportunity for this show to make them a better comedian. If someone always says or something like that, he could make that the thing. It was such an entertaining show. Yeah. I hope to see that sort of show in the future. Again, I don't know if he is has plans to continue that out west, but
I think he has plans to like take it to festivals. I hope so, because I agree. I think I hated being on the show.
Oh, I would have never been able to.
I think, like the first time when I had the elaborate hand gestures, I had a bunch of hot dogs I had to eat. And then the second time I did the show, he gave me smiling. And for the people that cannot see me on the podcast, I just have like a permanent smile. I have a very Midwestern smiley face. And so I think halfway through, he just abandoned it because the audience thought it was too mean.
Once you're getting 12 hot dogs that you've got to eat in your 3-minute set, it's like, okay, well, let's ease up. She's good. Oh, so good. So good. Well, you are 2 for 4 so far, and we're heading into the final question, the 5th question. Lisa, this one's for all the marbles. If you get this wrong, I am banning you from my podcast. You'll never be asked on again.
I'll never get the sticker.
You'll never get the sticker. But if you answer this correctly, you get that chance. Here's your question. Okay. If you could create your own Mandela effect, what would it be about? What thing would you choose to make people have a mass false memory about?
Oh, wow. That is really interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay. You threw me for a loop with that one. I have to think about that one for a second. So this one, this is really hard, but I think that I would I am a really big Cleveland Browns fan. So I think I would just make everybody remember that the year that the Browns left, they won the Super Bowl and left in a blaze of glory, and be really confused if that didn't happen. Yeah. I think that would be what I want. They just totally misremember the history of the Browns and remember them winning before they go off to Baltimore.
Bernie Kosar, we find out, has really been the quarterback for 40 years. Of the Browns, and we're all just misremembering our entire lives worth of Browns games. I like it. Exactly. I like it. That is a correct answer, which means you get a chance to come back on the podcast. And you went 3 for 5. That is not too bad. That's a winning record. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You can see Lisa Berry at Cafe Kerouac on March 17th. That's in Columbus, Ohio. In Hilliard, Ohio, which is where I live, she'll be at the Station on March 24th. Where else can people learn more about you or C-Bus Comedy in general?
So you can follow me at Lisa Berry, Berry227 on Instagram, and C-Bus Comedy. You can go to cbuscomedy.com, or you can find C-Bus Comedy on Facebook or Instagram, and it's just C-Bus Comedy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Once again, that's it's Lisa Berry 227.
It's Berry 227.
Oh, Berry 227. 227 like the show, like the 90s or 80s show with Jack.
Yeah, exactly. Or like I was the 227th Berry to attend OSU, and I just kept that.
I get that
throughout the rest of my adult life.
My brother was like 53 and I was 72. and my niece just got accepted, and she's like 300 and something. So we figured out the Kent per year ratio based on that. My brother and I were joking about that. All right. Well, have a wonderful week, Lisa. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
That's all for this week. Thanks so much to Lisa Berry for being our guest, and thanks to you for listening. Now, here's the voice of a kid who has definitely never seen the movie Bucket List.
Thank you for listening to The Internet Says It's True. To listen to episodes ad-free and a week early, support us on Patreon. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. If you learned something just now that you didn't already know, go to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review with 5 stars and a few words. That helps us a ton, because that's how the algorithm works. I don't know what an algorithm is, but just do it. See you next week for a brand new episode of The Internet Says It's True!
The Internet Says It's True would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions help to make this show possible. Sean Brown, Joshua Endres, Dallas Ray, Bryce Swanson, Eugene Anderson, Jim and Joanne Martin, Mitch and Andrew Joseph Kemplin, and the show's official Emperor, Kick Track. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. The theme song is by Finite Music Forge, and all audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for The Internet Says It's True wherever you get your podcasts, and you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent.